Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions. The mystery of the Sirius Mystery Revisited. What temple got right and wrong? Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In 1991, the Dutch anthropologist Walter van Beek went to Mali to interview the Dogon people about their knowledge of the star Sirius. Robert Temple's 1976 book, The Sirius Mystery, had made the Dogon world famous. Temple claimed they possessed detailed knowledge of Sirius B, a white dwarf invisible to the naked eye, not confirmed by telescope until 1862, which they had received from amphibious aliens called the Nommo, who had visited ancient Egypt. Van Beek interviewed more than 40 Dogon informants. The majority had never heard of the Sirius mythology that Temple described. Only elder priests with direct contact with the French anthropologist Marcel Griaule, the man whose 1930s and 1940s fieldwork Temple had built his theory on, knew the story. Van Beek's conclusion was clear. The Sirius B mythology had been created or heavily elaborated through Griaule's fieldwork, not preserved independently by the Dogon for centuries. Meanwhile, the actual evidence for Egyptian astronomical sophistication is extraordinary and requires no alien explanation. The heliacal rising of Sirius marked the Egyptian New Year and the Nile flood for 3,000 years. Temples were oriented to Sirius's rising point. The star was identified with the goddess Sopdet and with Isis. This is genuine, documented ancient astronomy about Sirius A, which is visible, not the invisible white dwarf Sirius B. Why replace the real story with an alien one? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the wider world of ancient technological anomalies, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. The official story of technological progress follows a reassuring arc. Stone tools giving way to bronze, bronze to iron, iron to steel, and finally, the Industrial Revolution catapulting humanity into the modern age. In this narrative, each generation inherits a slightly more sophisticated toolkit than the last, and no knowledge is ever truly lost. It is a comfortable story. It is also, in key respects, demonstrably false. History is littered with technological achievements that appeared centuries before their supposed invention, vanished after the cultures that created them collapsed, and were reinvented, often with great difficulty, by later civilizations who had no idea the knowledge had ever existed. Roman concrete was stronger and more durable than most modern concrete, and was not matched again until the 21st century. Greek fire, the incendiary weapon that protected the Byzantine Empire for centuries, has never been fully reproduced. Damascus steel, capable of holding an edge that modern metallurgists struggle to replicate, disappeared with the craftsmen who made it. These are not myths. They are documented historical losses of genuine technical knowledge. When we encounter an object from the ancient world that should not exist, a battery from Baghdad dated to the Parthian era, a computing mechanism salvaged from an ancient shipwreck, a map showing geographical features that were not officially discovered for another millennium, the temptation is to dismiss it as misidentified or misstated. That dismissal is sometimes warranted. But when such objects accumulate, when the pattern becomes too consistent to ignore, the honest response is to ask whether our model of ancient capability is simply wrong. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding the Sirius Mystery Revisited. What Temple got right and wrong is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Robert Temple published the Sirius Mystery in 1976. He argued that the Dogon people of Mali possessed knowledge of Sirius B, an invisible white dwarf companion to Sirius A, confirmed only by telescope in 1862, which they had received from ancient Egyptian priests, who in turn received it from amphibious extraterrestrials called the Nommo from the Sirius system. Temple also claimed ancient Sumerian and Greek texts contained Sirius B knowledge. The book was a popular success and remains in print. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes, but as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the Dogon knowledge of Sirius B was originally reported by French anthropologist Marcel Griaule, based on fieldwork conducted with Dogon elder Archaeoastronomy in 1931, and published in Diado, 1948, and Griaule and Germain d'Ireland's Le Renard Pale, 1965. Griaule reported that the Dogon described Sirius as having a companion star that was heavy, white, and small, properties of Sirius B. Temple built his extraterrestrial hypothesis entirely on Griaule's fieldwork reports. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. Walter van Beek, a Dutch anthropologist, conducted fieldwork among the Dogon in 1991 and published his findings in Current Anthropology the same year. He interviewed more than 40 Dogon informants across multiple villages. The large majority had no knowledge of a Sirius companion star. Only elder informants with direct personal contact with Griaule knew the Sirius B narrative. Van Beek concluded that the story was created or substantially elaborated in the context of Griaule's fieldwork, a phenomenon known as ethnographic contamination. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Sirius is the brightest star in the night sky, visible from all inhabited latitudes. In ancient Egypt, the goddess Sopdet, Greek, Sothis, personified Sirius and was identified with Isis. The heliacal rising of Sirius, when it first becomes visible above the horizon just before sunrise after a period of invisibility, marked the ancient Egyptian New Year and reliably predicted the annual Nile flood. This calendrical and religious connection to Sirius is thoroughly documented in Egyptian texts, temple alignments, and astronomical records spanning 3,000 years. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of Sirius B the white dwarf companion of Sirius A, was first predicted mathematically by Friedrich Bessel in 1844 from perturbations in Sirius A's proper motion. It was directly observed telescopically in 1862 by American astronomer Alvan Clark. Carl Sagan critiqued Temple's Dogon hypothesis in Broca's Brain, 1979, noting that the simplest explanation for any Dogon knowledge of Sirius B was post-1862 contamination from Western astronomical knowledge reaching West Africa via European missionaries, traders, or Griaule's own team. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Temple also claimed that Babylonian and ancient Greek texts encoded knowledge of the Sirius system. Assyriologists and classicists who examined these claims found no evidence that any ancient text outside Griaule's Dogon reports contained Sirius B knowledge. Egyptian temple orientations at Dendera and elsewhere align with the heliacal rising of Sirius A, the bright visible star, not with any property of Sirius B. Temple revised the Sirius Mystery in 1998 with additional material, but did not address Van Beek's fieldwork, which had appeared 7 years earlier. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Sirius Mystery Revisited, what Temple got right and wrong. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Temple's theory holds that the Dogon received knowledge of Sirius B from ancient Egyptian priests who obtained it from extraterrestrial visitors called the Nommo, amphibious beings from the Sirius system who visited Earth in prehistory. This theory depends entirely on Griaule's Dogon fieldwork and on Temple's readings of ancient Sumerian and Greek texts. Van Beek's 1991 fieldwork fatally undermined the Dogon foundation, and Assyriologists and classicists have found no Sirius B knowledge in any ancient text. No credentialed astronomer or anthropologist supports the extraterrestrial component. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the Dogon Sirius B mythology was created or substantially elaborated through Griaule's fieldwork. The ethnographic contamination hypothesis, supported by Van Beek and representing the mainstream anthropological conclusion. Griaule was a charismatic and directive fieldworker known to shape his informants' narratives. The Dogon informants who knew the Sirius B story were specifically those with personal contact with Griaule. Post-1862, Western astronomical knowledge was available in West Africa by 1931 through multiple channels, including French colonial education and mission schools. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that Egyptian Sirius worship is a genuine, richly documented astronomical tradition spanning 3 millennia, but it concerns Sirius A, the brightest star visible to the naked eye, not the invisible white dwarf Sirius B. No Egyptian astronomical text contains knowledge of Sirius as a binary system. Temple conflated real Egyptian Sirius astronomy with Griaule's Dogon reports to construct a hybrid theory. The genuine Egyptian evidence is compelling and historically significant without requiring any alien hypothesis to explain. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Sirius Mystery Revisited, what Temple got right and wrong, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes Van Beek's 1991 article in Current Anthropology, titled Dogon Restudied, interviewed more than 40 Dogon informants and found that the majority had no knowledge of the Sirius B mythology reported by Griaule. Only elder priests with direct Griaule contact knew the narrative. Van Beek noted that Griaule was known in the anthropological literature for directive fieldwork, and that his Dogon informants may have constructed or elaborated narratives in response to Griaule's questions. This is the definitive anthropological refutation of the Dogon foundation of Temple's theory. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the heliacal rising of Sirius is thoroughly documented as a central feature of the Egyptian religious and agricultural calendar. The pyramid texts, among the oldest religious writings in existence, reference Sirius. The temple at Dendera is oriented to the heliacal rising of Sirius A. The goddess Sopdet appears on the Dendera zodiac ceiling. None of this astronomical knowledge requires or implies knowledge of Sirius B. Egyptian astronomers tracked Sirius's visible behavior over centuries with impressive precision, entirely consistent with naked-eye observation. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed Carl Sagan's critique in Broca's Brain, 1979, established the simplest counter-explanation. Any Dogon knowledge of Sirius B's properties could be explained by post-1862 diffusion of Western astronomical knowledge via European contact with West Africa, French colonial presence, mission schools, and the direct contact of Griaule's fieldwork team with Dogon communities all provided channels for this diffusion. Sagan noted that Temple had not established that the Dogon Sirius knowledge predated 1862, which is the minimum requirement for his hypothesis to have any explanatory value. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Sirius Mystery Revisited, what Temple got right and wrong. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Temple revised the Sirius Mystery in 1998, adding material but not engaging substantively with Van Beek's 1991 fieldwork. The book remains in print and is widely read. Van Beek's study is the definitive anthropological refutation and is cited in all serious academic discussions of the episode. Egyptian astronomy is an active scholarly field demonstrating sophisticated knowledge of visible celestial phenomena, heliacal risings, planetary periods, solar and lunar cycles, none of which requires extraterrestrial input. No ancient source predating the 1862 telescopic discovery of Sirius B has been found to contain knowledge of the white dwarf's existence, mass, or orbit. The episode remains a case study in how genuine astronomical sophistication can be obscured by the overlay of an unsubstantiated alien hypothesis. The actual astronomy of ancient Egypt does not need extraterrestrial help to be extraordinary. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Sirius Mystery Revisited, what Temple got right and wrong from the historical record, through the physical evidence, see across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Sirius Mystery ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.